Alrighty, good morning guys. I'm coming to you today with a video going over bodywork. So I'm just finishing up another video that will be released before this one, talking about sandblasting and powder coating the rims. And as I was getting ready to put these rims on, I thought, ooh, I'll go ahead and I'll remove these wheel flares, because I knew I was planning to take them off anyhow. And boy, oh boy, when I started taking those off, did I open up a can of worms. So I noticed after I took the wheel flare off that there were some rivets underneath here. So I said, ooh, that's not very good. So I started looking at it, and sure enough, it looks like they riveted and then body fillered this whole side panel. So that's not very good. That's not really my kind of repair. So today we're going to start working on some body work. So right now, I also found this section over here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut a whole section out from here down to here. There's a pretty big dent right in here, which I could hammer out and fix, but I figure if I'm already replacing this much anyhow, it's not that much more. Just cutting a little more metal and replace it back to here. So I'm going to try and get some video of me doing that. And I'm not necessarily very good at body work, as I have very little experience with it, but I reckon I'm going to learn. So we're going to start by trying to tackle this section, and then we're going to try and get this all, figure out what we're going to concoct to try and clean that up a little bit. I definitely have some more grinding to do before that's all complete. But we'll probably have to go ahead and do this section, try and finish taking out this whole riveted panel all the way down, and then after that's all securely in, then we'll go ahead and figure out what we're going to do for that. So, all right, I'll be back with you soon. So I saw this video as a short on Facebook the other day, and I guess we'll find out if this really works. Somebody suggested for when you're cutting a panel out to replace, you take the tape, you take some tape, you put it over the whole area that you want to cut, and then when you cut it out, you can just peel the tape off of the part that you just cut out, and you'll have a perfect mold that you can go put on your fresh piece of metal that you're going to go cut. So that seems like it should be a pretty good idea. I guess I'll find out pretty quickly if it's not. So it looks like there's a little bit of a lap joint that was up here, but when we put our new piece of metal on, that should sit flush over the top of that. So we'll go on in and go see if we can go cut out that new piece. Oh, and I gotta grind out these remaining rivets here. But we'll go see how well our template worked out. Well, it looks like it did do a good job of giving us a template. This adhesive feels like it's lost a lot of it, probably because the metal was a little dirty as it was, and then on top of that, the heat seems to have hurt it. But anyhow, it should give us a good template at least, and we'll be able to trace off of that. So we'll get this piece cut, and we'll see if we can get it installed. All right, guys, so you watched me grind off all that bondo and body filler. You can see that there was quite a bit there off camera. Now I just went ahead and drilled out all the rivets that were holding it in. So it looks like he did a pretty good job. The previous owner must have done a really good job bending this metal, so I'm going to be able to reuse this as my rust pan, or as my patch panel, to come in here and fix this. The only thing is that I noticed that going all the way up here, it's still pretty banged up. So I don't know if it was in an accident or something crashed into it or something like that. So I'm going to have to finish grinding away all the way up to here and figure out what else is going on. What I'm thinking is that I'll probably end up maybe cutting a little bit further out here and maybe trying to get some panels or cut some more sheet metal to maybe cut out all this damaged part. And there's some more right in here. So we'll get a better idea once we start disassembling. But you can see there is a lot of body filler in here. So, but this piece looks pretty good, and I think with a little bit of paint and a little bit of love, we'll be able to reuse that. Then there's another panel here, so I'm going to guess that there must have been some sort of accident, and that's where all this came from. I'm also going to guess that that's probably what messed this up over here, which probably explains why there was fender flares put on it in the first place. I mean, I'm sure that it was an aesthetic choice, but on top of that, it looks like a pretty easy way to fix all of this. But we're not going to be going back to those, so we're going to be doing some more patchwork to try and get that cleaned up. So. Alright guys, so we're back again about a week later. We ended up having some issues with our welder, so but I got a new one from Harbor Freight. I got the titanium 140, 110 machine. So anyhow, we can go ahead and get back to work here. One thing I'm going to do before I put my piece of metal in is I've got this flange right here that's going to be stuck behind our new piece of metal. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some OSFO on that, and what that is it's a rust encapsulator. It helps prevent it from, it helps freeze rust essentially. So I don't know if it'll make any difference since we're going to be welding over top of it anyhow, but I figure it's worth a shot. So then what we're going to go ahead and do is use these magnets to help us get our template into place. And then I figure what we'll do is we'll get some tack welds in across the top up here to make sure it's nice and secure there. And then once this is secure up here, then we'll go ahead and start trying to bend the metal, because we do have a little bit of a curve in here. So I'm going to try and get some tack welds in first and then try and make the curve, because I think we'll have a little bit better luck. So we're going to go ahead and give this a try. Now, one key to remember when you're doing body work is that you need to keep it cool, and you want to minimize your welds as much as you can. So the tighter gaps you can have, the less your metal will shrink, which will create warpage. And you want to try and not stay in one area for too long, because the more heat that this builds up, the more that the metal can expand. So you have to, when you're welding, you have to watch for both shrinkage and expansion. So shrinkage will happen from the welds, because when you weld it and it's hot, the metal is expanding, and then after it cools down, it'll shrink that metal back down. So you have to watch out for that. But also, if you keep excessive heat on it, heat forces metal to expand. So it's a juggling act to watch out for both of those. So, alrighty. Alright, so we got a couple of tack welds on that now, so that should help keep that firmly in place while we start trying to bend the piece a little bit to match the rest of the panel. Now, I don't remember who I read this from or listened to say this, but they would generally say your metal is cool enough as long as you're able to touch it. So if you can't touch it, it's not ready to weld again. So all these are pretty cool right here. That one's a little hot, so we'll let that cool down a little bit and we'll work over here. It should also be noted that I speak primarily out of theory and not out of actual experience. I'm not a very skilled welder, but I am learning. Now, something else you can do, which I'm actually going to go employ shortly, is to help cool down your welds afterwards and to help you move a little bit faster, is you can take some compressed air and spray it on here to help it help distribute the heat. All right, guys. So, as you can see, bodywork is many things, but quick is not one of them. So, but this panel turned out pretty good. Maybe a little bit high in here. You can see that we were a little uneven here. One second, Ophelia. You can see that we're a little low in here. So this side sunk a little bit from this side, so that's why it's a little bit lower. And then over here, it's maybe easier to see from the side. We dip in a little bit right here, so I might be able to try and do some hammer and dolly work and see if I can push that out. But all in all, it's not too bad. So next we're gonna get ready to start trying to do this section over here, which is gonna obviously be quite a bit more work. But at least we got a little bit of our chops in here, and we'll see what we can do. All right, guys, so we've got a pretty decent stitch up going all the way down the whole length of the panel. And if you noticed in there, there's quite a few tack welds that I did, and then I cut them off, or later on cut them off and then re-weld them. And what I was trying to do is to get this perfectly flush. So that way, hopefully we don't have to use as much bondo and body filler or whatever. So what was happening was I'd get one area good, and then it seemed like further on down the line, or I just didn't get it good in the first place, it would be a little off. So that's why I kept going through and checking them and then recutting them. And now we have a pretty stinking smooth line going all the way down. So in here, we're probably gonna, after we do this whole line going all the way down and we get that side all squared away, I think we're gonna maybe try and cut a whole new piece to replace this whole length. But we're gonna get to that in a little bit. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna finish stitching up this whole length here, obviously minus these couple little bump outs, which I'm debating still if I'm gonna just body filler and fix, or if I want to actually cut them out and put a new panel in. I'm probably starting to lean more towards just doing body filler though. But we're gonna do this whole line here, and then we'll probably do whatever trimming we have to do in here, which it doesn't look like it's gonna be much. And then we're going to push this piece up so that this bottom comes pretty close to that other flange, this other flange right here. Then once all that's in place, then we can, and this piece is totally sturdy, then we'll come back and worry about trying to fix this. So, alrighty, I'm going to keep welding. All right, guys, now that we've got this patch panel all the way back in, we still have to grind it down and get it smooth. But before I worry about that, I still have to do this piece over here. So I forgot to take a video before I got it taped up, but we're going to try and do the same trick that we did over here, where we put the tape in and then we cut out around it. So that way we'll have an exact template of what we need. So you can see we're going from here to here to here and down and around. So you can see we're missing our inner fender lip right here. So we're gonna have to see what we can do to come up with trying to fabricate something. I don't know how well it's gonna work out, but we're gonna give it a try. All right, so we got our piece cut out and we got it laid out again. So right here is where we start the bend for the inner wheel well lip. So I'm just cutting it long because my plan is to put this whole thing in place and then try and bend this after the fact. So I'll have to pull the tire off to do that. But it's getting to be nighttime now, so we're just gonna get this cut and we'll tackle this next time we have a sunny day. Alrighty guys, so that probably wasn't very good footage towards the end there. I might even just cut that out. But what I was doing is I was working inside here, trying to help start cleaning up this wheel well. What it was I guess this was damaged before, and they went ahead and did all these little slice cuts to help get their bend, which is good, but anyhow, they didn't stitch them back together, so they had starting to get distorted over time and were never cleaned up. So I'm hoping to get that cleaned up. We got to cut another little piece to just fit in a triangle right in here, and then we're gonna get ready to grind in. So I'm gonna do a little bit more welding in here, but I reckon that's not, and get this little piece in here, but that's probably not gonna make for very good footage. So I'll set up another time lapse when I get ready to start grinding this whole thing. But you can see that this looks like it turned out pretty good. So we're making some progress.
All right, guys, so this is probably going to wrap it up for this video. We got quite a bit done here. I mean, primarily we got this panel in, we got that panel in, we got this panel in, and we did some work trying to clean up these wheel wells. One last thing I'm going to do, but I'll do it off camera, is I'm going to take a grinding or a cut-off wheel and try and level these all up so it's the same roughly all the way around. But this is just going to be part one. We have a lot more body work to do on this thing. You can see we got another panel, big panel that is curved and going to require all sorts of configuration there. Got a little bit of rust on the bottom of these, but that's going to be easy enough to clean up with just some MIG, some tacks. You can see from this mesh right here, we've got more fiberglass in here, so I know we're going to have some sort of mess back here. I got to take these fender tail or fiberglass tail lights off, so hopefully there's no mess hidden behind there. I realized an interesting thing, which is that this license plate holder is not original. So they did some sort of fiberglass work up in here, or bondo work, which is why there's cracking now. We actually come down in here. I don't know if it'll show up on camera real good, but you can see the rivet of where he riveted it in. So that's a little different and unique. And then I can tell, when I crawled underneath, I could see some rivets kind of down in this area, I think it was. And some more rivets over here. So we're going to have fiberglass or more body work to do in there. Some rust that's forming down here. More rust down here. A little bit of rust around the door. Some more rust over here. When I finally pulled that fiberglass bumper off, I realized that was hiding all of this down here. So I think I'm going to try and cut a new panel for there. It looks like the damage goes from about here down to here. So we'll see what we decide to do on that. And then finally we got this panel right here, which that should be pretty simple. And we got some work to do in here. So we really got a lot of work to do all around. So it's got a lot of hours ahead of us to really fix this thing. I'm going to get as much of that on video as I can. Most of that's just going to be time-lapsed, just in case someone's interested. I mean, there's not going to be too much to talk about. But if anyone wants to see all the progress done, you will be able to see it. At least I'm going to try to document as much as I can. There are times I forget to get the camera going. One other thing I was going to note here, I think I said it before, but this panel turned out pretty good. I don't know if I can really get it to focus on the camera, but when these two panels came together, there's a little bit of a hump right here. So hopefully we can try and smooth that out with the bondo to just take the edge off just a little bit, because it is quite a bit of a hump. But it is what it is. We've already concluded that this van is not going to be perfect. We're just trying to get it to good enough so that's not an eyesore going down the road, but she's going to have her dents and her bruises. And I'm sure with time she's going to develop a few more. She's going to last us hopefully the rest of our lives, so be rebuilt many times over. So she's just going to be what she's going to be. So I'll see you guys next time. Tune in for part 2, and we've got some other videos in the works as well. So see you guys soon.